The Toronto Raptors are practicing today in preparation for their next matchup against the Boston Celtics. I'm Savanna Hamilton alongside Sherman Hamilton, and Paul Jones will be joining us a little bit later to break down the 76ers a little bit further down in the week. But we got to focus on the game ahead of us because they're facing the Celtics again, which obviously they're a tough team.
Yeah.
They have a lot of great players, but Brown is injured off of from the Celtics. He has a hamstring injury. Obviously, he had great contributions with his first game of the season, dropping 46 points against the Knicks. But now, obviously, when he came back against the Raptors, didn't do so well, Sherm. So how big of a loss is he for the Celtics now that they have to face the Raptors again?
Well, he's a big loss. You think about Jaylen Brown's ability to impact the game on both sides of the basketball. He can score the ball. I mean, you talked about what he did the night before he faced the Raptors. Fortunately for the Raptors, the next night he didn't do as well, but we know he can score. He can score multiple ways. And then from a defensive perspective, he makes his team better because he's physical, he's athletic, he's got good instincts, and he's able to stay in fights with players that are bigger than him. So Jaylen Brown brings a lot to the Celtics, and without him in the lineup, it's going to be a very different look for the Celtics. But this is the season. You know, guys get injured, you miss key players. How is the team built around key players to be able to survive and maintain during these injury periods? The Celtics are going to get an early test.
Absolutely. He's been a crucial cog in their dynamic as a roster because Jason Tatum hasn't had the best of season starts, I guess. Yeah. You know, I looked at his numbers, and it's funny because they don't tell the whole story.
Right.
If you see his numbers, he's actually averaging he's in double digits, almost like 20 points a game, but it's the shooting percentage that is lower for him this season. So he's going to get inevitably more touches with this game up ahead because Jaylen is out. However, what my concern is, you know, he's still a great player. He's still phenomenal, but the Raptors did keep him under wraps in the first game. He was held to only 18 points, Sherman. So what should the Raptors do? Is it, you know, business as usual with him, contain him, or should they, you know, try a different approach?
Well, first of all, he's a multi-talented player. He can do so many things on the floor. So I think when you're approaching players like that, it can never be expect the same things to work twice. These guys are too good. Jason Tatum, he's going to figure some things out. He's probably looked at the tape at the way the Raptors defended him, and now he's got a different game plan, figuring out different ways to attack, especially knowing that Jaylen Brown's not going to be in the lineup. Guess what? He's going to get more opportunities. More of the offensive load is probably going to rest on his shoulders. So forget that first game. Throw it out the window. The Raptors understand they're going to have to give this man multiple looks, and the Raptors roster gives them the ability to play him differently in terms of size and physicality on the perimeter, on the block. So that versatility is huge for the Raptors, but you cannot give great players a steady diet of one look. You've got to mix it up. You got to make them think. You got to keep them moving mentally. They're still going to get their numbers, but you want to get that field goal percentage down.
Absolutely. You mentioned game plan, and that's something that the Raptors should really be focusing on heading into an early start for this game in particular, instead of like throw the first punch in this matchup, because that's something that they struggled with this past season, because when they are playing well, typically they have a lead in the first quarter even, but you know, they don't want to fight from behind, especially when it comes to this Boston Celtics roster, Sherm.
Yeah, and you're on the road. You don't want to go there and you have to fight an uphill battle for 4 quarters. And I think one thing the Raptors are trying to do is come out with more energy at the beginning of the game and really jump on teams. I mean, this is a team of the Raptors that when they play with energy, they create good situations for themselves. And Boston is not playing the basketball that they expected to play so far this season. So they're a hungry team. They're going to be at home. And if you're the Raptors, you can't walk in there nonchalantly and expect to just, when the ball goes up, be able to dominate this team. It's still a quality team that you're going to have to face. You're going to have to do a better job in terms of getting out to a good start.
Absolutely. Now, Pascal Siakam, he's available for this game. Of course, minute restrictions still, but what should the expectations be for him going into this?
Well, more of the same. I mean, he's still working into shape. You know, he's got a couple of days of practice in between the game. You know, you hope that in those practices he's getting more wind and getting more rhythm. Having said that, Pascal is going to be Pascal. My assumption about Pascal moving forward is we're going to see him shoot the 3 ball more effectively. We're going to see him add a few moves to his game. But his fluidity is something that the Raptors could desperately use in terms of how he changes ends of the floor. Pascal used to be one of the best floor-running bigs when he came into the league. You know about it. That first big to the rim, putting pressure on the defense. I think he's got to get back to that. You know, that guy who can just beat teams down the floor, create easy opportunities. force other teams to have to play different lineups because their bigs can't hang with him. So I expect him to get all that back once he gets his rhythm and his timing. So no worries about Pascal moving forward.
Absolutely. When he is running the floor, like, he looks in his comfort zone. He looks natural doing that. When the offense is more set up, don't get me wrong, he can still create a shot for himself. Yeah. But I agree. He looks great when he's stretching the floor, creating an extra offensive threat that, oh crap, the other team, they have to go back and defend him. They can't leave him open, because if they leave him open, well, then he's going to make you pay. Yeah. We're now going to head over to listen into what the players and head coach Nick Nurse has to say.
I wouldn't say really much after sacrifice, really just trying to get a balance of learning when to go, when to get a steal, when to exert, certain energies. Obviously, you want to play hard at all times, but, you got to kind of pace yourself in a sense. You're picking up full on defense and you're playing hard. If you're getting up into guys and trying to score on offense, it can take a lot out of you. But really, that's where your conditioning come into play and your work come into play and, all them good things. And the more recognition, you obviously get for defense, and the more you see your defense and you're stealing the ball from guys and you can knock it loose, you get a certain confidence, you get a certain feel about yourself in the defensive end, and also playing on this team. We got great defenders on this team, so it gives me an opportunity to play up, play hard. If I get beat, I know one of my teammates got my back and they're going to help me. There's some times where I might see it and be like, I don't even got a chance, but I'm still going to go for it because I think I can, make something happen. And then there's times where I just like, all right, I'm going to chill right here and then try to get it back, or I'm going to get it back next play, that type of thing. But really just in-game scenario, the situation, the play, our coaching staff does a terrific job. Sometimes we're at the free throw line, we can call out other teams' plays. So you already know where it's going. You already know how the guy's about to come off the screen. You already know how you can kind of jump it. So it's really just, doing your homework, knowing the plays, listening in or shoot around, that type of thing. There's the freedom here, offensively, defensively, the coaching staff believing in you, letting you play your game. Don't have to look over your shoulder or know, can I do this on this defensive possession, or what can I do on this offensive possession? It's kind of free flowing, just roll with the flow type of thing.
I don't think anything has changed from his perspective from the beginning of the season, preseason, until now. I think it's the same. We talk a lot, and I don't think anything has changed in terms of roles and what he wants me to do. On my side, I know I haven't been playing the way I'm supposed to. That's not no secret. It's just me just trying to like figure out, just like get in the flow, get in the rhythm. It's kind of, right now it's kind of tough. It was, so I think I had about 3 or 4 games where I was kind of like not in rhythm. I didn't feel the basketball. I wasn't feeling the flow of the game, or whatever the case may be. Kind of like took away, a little bit from what I know I'm capable of doing and what he knows he's capable, I'm capable of doing, and my teammates as well. And Cam was playing great. Cam is a vet. Me and Cam would talk a lot. And believe it or not, Cam helps me a lot, and he tells me a lot of things. I learn a lot from Cam. And, just the simple things of the game here and there, he tries to like show me. And, he was playing great. And I think we won all those games. Yeah, and can't get mad at that.
I kind of come into today a little more after I've watched the game film a little bit that we weren't more aggressive. To be honest with you, I know you kind of got the Cleveland game in your head there. You're asking kind of about those couple last plays there where we just about picked the ball off 3 or 4 times and again didn't bounce our way and we didn't get them and they made big shots. I didn't think we were aggressive enough against Brooklyn because they're just not passing and playing ISO basketball and standing there and dribbling it. And, unless you're going to take it from Harden, you're not going to create anything unless you send some kind of scheme at them. And I'm not very happy with myself that I didn't try to do something more to create more. I would say the same thing about Doncic in the Dallas game. Well, I would imagine that you can't just throw everything into one side of it. I would imagine there's some other glaring statistic that's sticking out in the game, some of those games that we're losing. That balances it the other way. Either we shot it really poorly or they shot a truckload more free throws than we did, that's probably a good place to start. But no, I'm really happy. We're 6-5. I think we look good. I think we're tough to beat. I think we're really young and scratching the surface. I think we're a long ways away from our ceiling with this team. I mean, yeah, would I rather be 7-4? Yeah. We'll pick a few off. It'll balance itself out. They play really hard, man. It takes a lot of effort to get on the glass. And then if you're getting on the glass to still get back, it's effort. And I think there's probably, I mean, some of the stats are showing you the effort. The turnovers, the offensive rebounding, the defensive transition, they're showing a lot of effort. And that's as simple as that. So we need to play hard. We need to play harder, more consistently, and be in good shape.
Paul Jones will now be talking about the big names that will be missing during the 76ers game.
Thanks, Sav. Well, the Raptors may have caught a bit of a break in a sense, although we always say injuries are part of the game and they come with the NBA life. Joel Embiid out, expected to be out, missed several games the next 9 or 10 days in the league's health and safety protocol. And the Sixers are a sub-500 team, Savanna, Sherman, without Joel Embiid. They've been that their entire time. He's such a big body. He's such a commanding presence. You know, on the offensive end, you've got a guy who can dominate when he goes inside. He can play on the outside, but he draws double teams, and that makes all the other players around him better. It frees up shooters like, you know, Seth Curry, Furkan Korkmaz. All of these guys get good looks with Embiid on the floor, and the fact that he won't be there, it hurts their offense. It also hurts their defense too. He's a big body, as I said. He commands a presence in the paint. When you're driving in there, you've got to look for him. You know, maybe you're kicking the ball out and trying to get easier shots for people, but Joel Embiid's a guy that everything revolves around him in Philadelphia. And interesting, Nick Nurse usually has pretty good schemes for Embiid, and when he's got the players to execute them, things work out well. It'll be different right now for the Raptors game planning without Joel Embiid, and this is a critical time for the Philadelphia 76ers. Well, it's a very kind of sticky situation in Philadelphia with Ben Simmons, you know, things flying back and forth, allegations and hurt feelings. The bottom line is the team's out on the floor. And the other part of that bottom line is they missed Ben Simmons. They were a sub-500 team without him. And now that Joel Embiid's out, the record shows that they are a sub-500 team without both of them. And Simmons is a guy that, you know, people will talk about his lack of shooting, but there's more to the game than shooting. Ben Simmons is one of the elite perimeter defenders in the league, and Philadelphia won't have him. You saw how he made it difficult for the Raptors and smaller players in the championship season. He made it difficult for Lowry. He made it difficult for Van Vliet. He made it difficult for anybody. And he actually, you know, had a hand in trying to guard Kawhi Leonard. So they're missing an elite defender. And as much as people say he doesn't shoot the ball or can't shoot the ball, he's a great distributor. He will run the floor. You know, he will make layups, and he's a guy that will be missed on both ends of the floor. So, you know, again, I talk about a little bit of a break for the Raptors in that they're getting a team without Joel Embiid. They're getting a team without Ben Simmons. They are a sub-500 team. It puts pressure on some of the other players. And again, Nick Nurse will scheme for that. He'll try to make it as difficult as possible for some of the other players and put them in a position where they have to succeed and they have pressure on them. So let's give the Raptors a real solid look here. They have a chance to steal a game against a team that's down. Well, the Toronto Raptors certainly know about this situation. We'll harken back to some numbers from last season in a minute, but the Sixers have 4 players now in the health and safety protocol. When you think about Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris, and you add in there Matisse Thybulle and Isaiah Joe, they're already without Ben Simmons. This is a team that is down. And the Raptors know about this from last year. Toronto crawled back to the 500 mark at 17-17 a year ago in the 72-game condensed shortened season. And then they hit the month of March. And as somebody in the organization said to me, we were almost out the door at All-Star break before all of this happened. They lost the last 2 games before All-Star break and then proceeded to go 1-13 over the month of March. They went from 4th at 17-17. Well, we know what happened. They missed the playoffs. They missed the play-in. They came 12th. So they finished with a 1-13 record in the month of March. This is a critical time for Philadelphia because even though we're approaching the quarter pole and the season is very young, you're forming relationships, you're bonding, you're defining roles. Your team is finding out who they are and how they have to play and what they have to do to be successful. And you're missing 4 players, 3 of them very, very key players. Well, actually 4 of them when you think about Thibault and his the way he started last year and his defensive capability. So it's a tough time for Philadelphia. And again, I've said this earlier, it's a good time for the Raptors to try and take advantage. It's the NBA. Nobody's going to feel sorry for you. When they see a win or they see a wounded team, they're trying to get a win and move on and let that wounded team worry about trying to beat somebody else. Key time for the Raptors and could be a very telling period in the season for the 76ers.
Now, the Raptors 905 announced their roster, Sherm, and I'm always excited because I get to have the privilege of sideline reporting on this team. So, I've already had a chance to meet the guys. There's a few people I have my eye on in terms of performance. What are you looking at? Which players on this team stand out to you?
Well, obviously, your eye is way better than mine when it comes to the 905 because of your involvement. But, I look at the two-way players for the Raptors, Justin Champagnie and also David Johnson. These are 2 guys who are going to look to try and crack the big team. So when you see that opportunity there and the team is putting some faith in you to develop and they trust and believe that you can at some point be called up, that's that carrot dangling in front of your eyes. Go chase it and see if you can get it done. Then the other side of it is a guy like Reggie Perry, a guy who was a former second round draft pick, got a taste in the NBA. Working your way back, this is a story that's consistent throughout the G League. These opportunities are great for guys like that who understand what the league is about. They didn't quite get the chance to stay in the league. How hard do you work to get there? What have you done to improve your status to see if some team around the league says, we want that talent on our roster? So few guys that I'm looking at, but I know you have a few people you're looking at.
Absolutely. To be honest, if I could say the whole team, I would right now. But my producer's restricting me to just 2 names. So if I have to say 2 people that come to mind at first, the first one is Breein Tyree.
Okay.
An athletic guard, defensive-minded player, absolutely smothers the defense. And last year, he really stood out in the G League bubble. He actually tore his ACL earlier in the G League bubble, so that was back in February. He's already made a recovery. So I have my eye on him. I talked to him in marketing day for the 905, and I said, do you feel ready? Are you good? And he's like, oh, I'm good. He's like, and this is also not his first time having a knee injury and bouncing back, which you would never, ever, ever be able to tell because he's so athletic. He could drive to the hoop very well. He's long, he's lanky, and he really does play that nitty-gritty Raptors defensive mindset type of game. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to be bringing to the table this season. Another name that pops up to mind is Josh Hall. Now, it's going to be one of those players that we're going to have to keep a bit of an eye on, but there's high expectations in terms of his performance. Actually, he was expected to be drafted in the second round a little bit earlier, but somehow did not, somehow got drafted a little bit later. So we are looking forward to seeing him perform, as well as he could be expected to be one of those guys that could potentially see a future call-up. But, the last one I will say, and just for a bonus, just to make my producer mad, is Kevon Harris as well, because he didn't really get the opportunity to shine out last year, but he's a bigger player. He's a forward. He could really take up space on the court, and he's also one of those defensive-minded players. But moving on, I really do want to talk about the G League now as a whole, how crucial it is for that league to really supplement the NBA in terms of prospects and talent.
It's huge, and it's not just on the court when you talk about players, because that's the focus. Obviously, you want to see what players are going to be able to migrate to a big team in the NBA, but also when you talk about officials, you talk about coaches, you talk about training staffs, medical staffs, you talk about scorers at the score table, ball boys, ball girls, all those kind of things. It trickles down, and you're preparing and you're developing and you're cultivating a culture of improvement. And that, to me, is something that every organization should be doing consistently. And I feel the Raptors are one of the best at doing it, developing people on all levels to help bring up to the big team, or potentially move on to somewhere else where they can apply their skills that they learned at the 905. So this league is an amazing tool on so many levels for so many people for so many factions of an organization, I feel it's a necessary part of development on all those levels as well.
Yeah, and I think that the Raptors organization as a whole, some organizations in this NBA league, they see their G League as almost a separate entity away from them. But the Raptors really want to make it an incorporation into the bigger goal, into the bigger, the big league. So
that's right.
So, like when I think about the Raptors 905 in particular, you got to look at the alumni because they really speak for themselves as to who got brought up from the 905, right? Like the only playoff season that the 905 have actually missed was their very first inaugural season. Ever since then, they've actually made a playoff run. And the second season, they actually won the championship in the league. And you go tell me who was on that team.
Oh, you're right. And this is the thing about the Raptors developmental system. They've done a great job winning while developing. It's not two entities that usually go hand in hand. When you're developing talent, you're usually not winning games. The Raptors have done that while winning. And, when you talk about a player getting sent down to the G League, well, it's not a demotion.
No.
You just look across this Raptor roster right now. I'll just throw Pascal at you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll throw guys like Freddie VanVleet at you. Mm-hmm. Even a Norm Powell who went away to somewhere else, to Portland. All these guys came through that G League, and when they were sent down, they weren't sent down there to not be brought back up. They were sent down there to craft, to hone their skills, to continue to build their abilities and come back to the big team. And what did it happen? It led to a championship for them. So there's no question, it's not a demotion. It's about getting better when you're down there. And if you take it as a demotion, you're probably not going to be in this system very long.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned the big names, and those guys were the same guys that won that 905 championship as well. So they've won on both levels, and it's really translated to obviously the Raptors championship. But, I also look at players like a Gary Payton II, who's now at Golden State, playing real rotational minutes, contributing big time. And he's an older player.
Yep.
It gives players that maybe were overlooked in their career that second chance or opportunity as well. I think of Alize Johnson, who got signed up to the Brooklyn Nets, and now he's with Chicago, also having rotational minutes and making contributions. So, it's such a great tool for the NBA to use. You could catch the Toronto Raptors facing off on the road against the Boston Celtics Wednesday, 7:30. You could watch it on Sportsnet and also listen to it there as well. Keep in mind that the Westchester Knicks are also playing the 905 on Thursday at 7:30 on NBA TV Canada. Sherm, do you have any notes going into this Boston Celtics game?
Well, I think you're going into the Garden, you better be ready to play. I mean, this team is hungry. The Celtics haven't gone off to a great start. They were lost to the Raptors earlier in the season. They have revenge on their mind.
Absolutely. Thank you for watching another episode of Raptors Today. From Sherman Hamilton, Paul Jones, Alex, Jake, and Brandon, I'm Savanna Hamilton. Have a great day.